Coming up on this special edition of the ICT Newscast, we travel east to the land of the people of the dawn and check in on the annual Passamaquoddy Days celebration. And another East Coast tribe is growing its land base. Plus, Hokulea's voyage over 43,000 nautical miles and using only ancestral wayfinding. And we catch up with a young native fashion designer thriving in the bustle of New York City. We have those interviews ahead.
This program is made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a private corporation funded by the American people.
The ICT Newscast is sponsored by the Indian Land Tenure Foundation, a nonprofit organization serving American Indian nations and people in the recovery and control of their rightful homelands. On the web at iltf.org.
Support for the ICT Newscast with Aaliyah Chavez comes from the Arizona PBS studios in Phoenix at the Walter Cronkite School of Journalism and Mass Communications at Arizona State University. Thank you for joining us on this special edition of the ICT Newscast. I'm Mark Trahant. We start on the east in the Wabanaki territory, where ancient traditions are growing strong again. And nowhere is that more visible than at the Passamaquoddy Days celebration on the Passamaquoddy Nation. For nearly 6 decades, people of the Dawn have used the growing event as an annual touchstone for their culture and lifeways. ICT's Stuart Huntington visited recently and has this report.
Tribal citizens and non-tribal citizens gathered along the Passamaquoddy Nation shore for drums, dances, and smiles. But the day also had deep meaning.
It's very significant to our people because we're handing down songs, stories, and ceremonies, and we're passing it on from one generation to the other.
That was Dwayne Toma, who, as director of the Passamaquoddy Tribal Museum in Zibayek, is dedicated to preserving, nourishing, and rejuvenating his nation's culture.
It's really important for us to gather, to come together, and to be able to unite our people and all people. So we invite everyone to come to celebrate with us, to share some of the songs, the stories. So it's really an opportunity for us to build relationships with one another.
And also, says Alberta Newell, to reconnect.
It's to heal and to commune with the ancestors and pray for goodness for our families and our friends and our community. It gives us time to family, friends, people we haven't seen all year that come together, especially COVID, that can come together and we can just reconnect and meet all the new babies and meet all the new spouses, or even grieve for those who have passed on. So to me, it's all about family. The whole Passamaquoddy Days is about family. And being with friends and having good thoughts and eating and dancing and singing and drumming and just being with everybody. That's what I find important.
The celebration has grown over the years and now kicks off with an overnight Ancestors Paddle canoe journey from the nation's northern territory at Indian Township down to its seaside lands in Zibayek. It's a special time, says Passamaquoddy Chief Renee Newell.
It's a spiritual journey, certainly. I think we have to be mindful of the history and the significance of that paddle. And we have connections to our ancestors. And this particular paddle brought blessings along the way in being able to see 14 eagles join us along the route.
The paddle is also a way to reconnect with and revitalize ancient and sturdy traditions, says organizer Kyle Lolar.
It's just part of who I am and what my culture is. As a Penobscot tribal citizen, I'm on the water. ever since I was a little kid. Birch bark canoes, warrior canoes, kayaks, you name it. We're always on the river, and that's just part of who we are. Before colonization, this was our highways. The waterways were our highways. Anywhere you went, there was a birch bark canoe ready to go. And you had language keepers, you had knowledge keepers keeping us alive and running from point to point on the rivers, on the lakes, on the oceans. So that's why it's so important that we get these going again, so that the nations are then communicating with each other again, getting to know each other, getting the elders to share knowledge that has been sleeping for a while. And myself and others, it's our responsibility to bring that back out and do the work.
And restore the reach of the people of the Dawnland.
Actually, that's Canada right there, and this bay is named the Passamaquoddy Bay. So we have a deep relationship and a connection to the ocean. So the water is very sacred to our people. According to us, it's been handed down since time immemorial that, that is Passamaquoddy territory. So that political border, and that's exactly what it is, it's a political border. So we don't recognize that political border. We have to deal with it all the time. It's just an ongoing process to be able to, work with these officials regarding the border.
This is our 57th year of hosting Passamaquoddy Days, which has really turned into a weekend event. And for me, it's about welcoming people here to Sabayak and seeing our family, come home to visit, and welcoming new people to the community to learn about our culture, to share in our traditions.
In Sabayak, Maine, in Passamaquoddy territory, Stuart Huntington, ICT News.
The Upper Mattaponi Indian tribe fought for 2 decades to gain federal recognition. That was small potatoes. It took 400 years to get a good-sized piece of its ancestral landback. Stuart Huntington visited with the Upper Mattaponi chief, Frank Adams, about the resilience.
We, the Upper Mattaponi tribe, we got our name because when the oldest 2 reservations in the United States are in King William County, and one of them is the Mattaponi Reservation, and our families did not want to be placed on a reservation, so we disappeared into the shallower waters of the upper reaches of the Mattaponi River, and therefore we became the Upper Mattaponi people. But we had lost all of our land holdings. We were a landless tribe years ago. But this property, which has been mined, it has been the sand and gravel mine for 15 years, came up for sale, and we wrote a grant, a NOAA grant, and purchased it because it was our cultural property. It was our homelands back in the late 1600s. So it's 855 acres. It's, like I said, it's a reclaimed mine. So we're limited on some of the things we can do with it just because of the integrity of the soils now. But it's a beautiful piece of property. It's right on the river's edge, and it's a healing property for us. It's the lakes on the property they were dug during the mining process, so the water is the spring water, and it's crystal clear, and you can see all the way to the bottom, even though it's 30 feet deep in a lot of places. Just beautiful water. It's healing. I consider it a healing place for our tribal citizens to go and just reconnect.
Sir, you mentioned that it's very difficult often for tribes on the East Coast to find land.
Yes, it is. It's well, the East Coast has been developed so much that large parcels of property are usually spoken for or hardly ever come up for sale or transfer. So that we bought this, and remember, it was a damaged property, and that's probably the only reason we had the opportunity to reacquire it. But I think with the help of the Great Spirit and our dedication, we will get it back to a livable property sooner than later. You know, got to remember we were the first contact Indians. We were there first. So as we held the settlers off from crossing the Mississippi River, we lost a lot, but we did hold them back for 250 years. Our language is a lost language. We're trying. We have some words, so we're trying to reclaim it now. We've got some programs going, trying to reclaim our language. We have Wingapo, that is hello in Algonquian. That's about the only word. Well, we have several other words, but that's the one that I use most of the time when I'm just saying hello to somebody. Wingapo. Now we just came federally recognized in 2018. A year later, the pandemic hit, so we were blessed with some funds from the government for COVID to spend on COVID situations, COVID health care. So we decided that we would spend it on a doctor's office. So we bought a abandoned doctor's office, remodeled it, and opened it up to treat tribal citizens from our tribe and all federally recognized tribes free of charge. And we also open to the community. So it's a community doctor's office in a rural area. Has been very successful for us, and it is our main source of income at this point.
Sir, were you involved in the effort to gain federal recognition?
Yes. It was a 20-year battle for the 6 tribes in Virginia that went to get recognition, and I've been involved from the beginning with fundraising to pay our lobbyists and this and that. Chief Ken Adams was a chief before me who led the charge on it, on getting these tribes federally acknowledged. But I was chief when the bill finally passed the Congress after 19 years of trying.
That seems like that might have tried your patience. That's along the way.
Oh, it did. It was very. We made a lot of trips to Washington D.C. Talked to a lot of senators and congressmen, and then would sit in on the hearings and see our bill voted down for 18 years straight. It was very trying, very, very humbling, very disappointing.
Sir, do you have a message for other folks in your position trying to gain federal recognition?
Yes, we're here after over 400 years of English contact. So that means we are a very resilient people. So anybody else who is working towards gaining federal recognition, just stay diligent, stay resilient, because it's not easy. But if you stay at it long enough, chances are you'll get a favorable.
Chief Adams, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Crew members from the Polynesian Voyaging Society are embarking on a new and major journey through the Pacific Ocean. Their mission? To ignite a movement and build an educational campaign bringing urgent awareness to caring for Mother Earth. ICT's Aaliyah Chavez has the story of this extraordinary mission.
Meet Hokulea, a double-hulled voyaging canoe and the center of a story about survival, rediscovery, and restoration. In 2019, Hokulea and her crew completed a 6-year journey circumnavigating the globe, stopping in over 150 ports around Polynesia, the Indian Ocean, the Atlantic, through North America, and then home to Hawaii, and she did it using indigenous knowledgeways. Think back to before people calculated latitude and longitude, and before the compass or GPS was invented. That was when Pacific Islanders navigated through wayfinding, using the stars, winds, ocean swells, and sun to travel through the open ocean. Around 50 years ago, it was believed these methods were lost in Hawaii. That was until some Kanaka Maoli or Native Hawaiians learned that wayfinding was still being practiced in some areas of Micronesia. They studied wayfinding under the direction of Mau Piailug, a master navigator from the island of Satawal, and then built a traditional canoe named Hokulea. In 1976, Hokulea made her first voyage from Hawaii to Tahiti, marking an important and cherished moment in her people's history. The Polynesian Voyaging Society has announced its latest voyage called Moana Nui Akea. Taking 4 years to complete, Hokulea is set to navigate the vast Pacific Ocean, traveling to 36 countries and stopping at more than 300 ports. That's an estimated 100 indigenous territories. The voyage started in mid-June in Alaska and is set to conclude in the spring of 2027. But before the journey started, there was a ceremonial welcome. As Hokulea approached Auk Bay in Juneau, Alaska natives sent traditional canoes to escort members of Hokulea's crew. Protocol started with crew members asking permission to come on shore. They were met with a warm welcome of chanting, singing, and drumming. According to the president of the Tlingit and Haida, it was a welcome that has happened long ago between these indigenous cultures.
This is exactly how we would have seen it 200 years ago, 1,000 years ago, 10,000 years ago. And the message for me was our traditions are alive, our culture is alive, our people are still thriving here after tens of thousands of years. And despite colonialism and all those things that have been created to separate and divide us, we're still here, we're still rich in our culture. The Pacific Ocean doesn't divide us, it actually unites us, it ties us together. It's our highway, as we're all canoe people.
Both Native Hawaiian and Alaska Native culture was on full display.
Our Hawaiian relatives, our ohana, coming here to our lands to visit helps us just continually dedicate ourselves to the revitalization of our own cultures. You know, we get to bring out our best today. We get to show off in the best way possible, not in an ego way, not in a Western view of showing off, but showing off in the way that we celebrate who we are. We dance without any qualms. We're unapologetic. We sing unapologetically. We don't care who's here, who might be worried about our loud voices and our drums in our own homelands. We're unapologetically Tlingit, we're unapologetically Haida, and we're unapologetically Simpson.
Ka'ivi Hamakua Makue is a crew member who says part of this voyage is to develop young leaders through the stops they make. The ultimate hope is to create an educational campaign amplifying the importance of the ocean and to inspire people to make better choices to protect our planet.
Moana Nui Akea is the name of the voyage, and that really, Moana is the deep ocean, and Nui Akea is actually the expanse of the ocean. And as I've traveled, as we have traveled, we have this interconnectedness with everybody that we come into. Our ancestors believed that the ocean was more of a bridge, was a connection to people rather than an obstacle. And so when we think about the ocean and the lessons that it teaches us, I think it teaches us how to really be intentional of our space. You know, being aware of our surroundings, our environment, it humbles us. It teaches us that we're not sometimes all that, you know, and sometimes that we have to be able to humble ourselves and to learn from the things around us, the people, the environment.
Right now, the health and the vitality of the Pacific Ocean is probably more precarious than it's ever been, right? Pollution, ocean trawlers that are overfishing, and you know, we're seeing our resources taken by others.
That's all part of the reason why Hokulea's voyage is significant and needed.
We have another Olelo No'iao, or phrase called he wa'a, he moku, he wa'a. That the island is a canoe and the canoe is an island. And that if we treat our honua, our earth, like a wa'a, as an island, with that mindset of taking care of our space, that what we take care of is limited, and that we want to steward it for future generations, not only our physical self, our spiritual, but even our mental, and just everything that encompasses that.
Hud Oberle grew up in Norman, Oklahoma, but has found home in a faster-paced New York City area. Always staying busy, he spent some time at the Sundance Film Institute's Indigenous program and served on the board of the country's largest Native scholarship organization. ICT's Stuart Huntington caught up with him recently, just as the designer's preparing to launch a new fashion line.
It's everything I'm looking for. It's the fast pace, there's a lot of energy, there's a lot of creatives and artists and art all around. Obviously my eyes are open to that, to looking for that, passing by that, but it's all, I feel like the opportunities here are endless, and so that's exactly what I'm looking for right now in this creative time and this kind of entrepreneurial time as well. So it provides for all of that.
Tell us about your blank canvas collection. That sounds really cool.
So the blank canvas collection is a slow release collection of items. So by that, I'm releasing it over the span of a year and a half. So starting out with the vest that I launched last fall, and then moving forward, starting this fall, I'll be releasing about 3 to 5 items per season. And so those items are made with organic canvas and then also a dyed black organic canvas. And so the concept behind that is for artists to apply their own art to that, whether it's embroidery, painting, beading, anything, for them to kind of use that as their canvas and make something new out of those original designs.
You have a new line you're about to release.
Yeah, so there's a mini collection called the Here's to You Summer Art Camp. And so it's tied to the brand Here's to You's kind of mission to let everyone know that they're creative in some way. And so it's kind of like the entry point to things like the blank canvas collection, where maybe that's more geared towards practicing artists, professional artists. But the summer art camp is a little seed so that people can feel that they're creative as well. So when I launch the collection, I'm going to be also doing some in-person events so that there's some interactive art opportunities. And the back of the shirt says your inner child is an artist. So hopefully the people that get it, wherever they may be, but specifically in New York City, walking around, it makes people think about themselves being an artist and kind of having that childlike joy brought back to them through creativity.
Your work is for sale at Relative Arts, the new indigenous creative space in downtown New York. The co-founders there talk about promoting indigenous futurism. What does that mean to you?
To me, indigenous futurism is the collective effort by anyone of all ages to imagine what indigeneity looks like in the future, whether that's 10 years or 500 years. Figuring out what that means for holding on to our sovereignty, holding on to individual sovereignty of allowing someone to become themselves so that they can be their unique self and be additive to the collective community, but having that responsibility and accountability to play their part and have their unique perspective be added to the conversations.
Hud, tell us about your work with scholarships.
Yeah, so I'm on the board for Native Forward Scholars Fund, formerly American Indian Graduate Center. I've been on their board since 2019. We're the largest direct scholarship provider of Native students in the United States.
Supporting students sounds like indigenous futurism.
Yeah, I mean, it's like a lot of the public servant work that I've done for Indian country. It's like finding the emerging talent, whether that's students or artists, and meeting them where they're at to help support them and their vision, so that we can support them where it might not fall into the mainstream societal institutions and their structures, but finding them where they're at and supporting them wherever their imagination may go. And I guess you could relate that to imagining indigenous futurism.
Hud, you grew up immersed in your native cultures. Tell us about how that has helped you navigate your early career.
Yeah, well, I grew up dancing in our Osage Elanchka since I was 8 years old. And so now that's been 20 years now, just putting that math together in my head. But 20 years being a part of our Elonchka, which is our ceremonial gatherings that happen in June. And so, I mean, just being very Osage specific on those things, there's a lot of structure and certain ways of doing things and doing things the right way. And so there's things that I think are carried through me and through the work that I do that relate to those things. But I think just generally being raised around my culture, whether it's Osage, Comanche, or Caddo, is that those things have molded my mind to how I make decisions. And so the ideas that I have through Here's to You or with Native Forward or the other things I do, they may not be directly like, this is an Osage idea, or this is a traditional Caddo or Comanche idea, but those ways of thinking that I grew up around informed the decisions I have and translate to not just Indigenous related decisions, but everything I do.
Hud, thanks for joining us today.
Of course, it's a great time.
And that's a slice of our Indigenous world. For all the latest, visit ictnews.org. From all of us in the newsroom, stay safe, my relatives.
This program is made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a private corporation funded by the American people.